Welcome. I'm Yati Sangvi. With me today are my colleagues Julia Vaynerchuk, Krishna Patel, and Amy Wang. In this episode of America Today, we are going to be discussing our president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and his Second New Deal. He has just recently been nominated for running again in the 1936 election. Along with running mate John Nance Garner, they will be opposing Republican nominee Alf Landon and his running mate Frank Knox. In light of the upcoming election, we here at America Today have decided to take a look at Roosevelt's administration so far. Specifically, we are going to take a closer look at the Second New Deal and the changes that it has brought.
Let's start at the beginning, the formation of the Second New Deal. From early on, President Roosevelt understood that he had to appeal to as many people as possible. In order to do that, he let himself be influenced by many internal and external critics. These critics pushed President Roosevelt to continue radical reforms and continue the Second New Deal. Pressure was coming in strong from many different viewpoints who were not satisfied with the changes of the First New Deal. These included businessmen, populists and demagogues, such as Father Coughlin, Dr. Townsend, and Huey Long, and socialists and communists such as Upton Sinclair and Robert La Follette. In addition, people in his administration also had a hand in the push for the Second New Deal. Such people included Frances Perkins, the first woman cabinet member, and Herod Ickes, Roosevelt's close advisor. Both come from backgrounds as social workers. A few black people who hold cabinet-level positions in the New Deal agencies also had a voice in the proceedings. Another important supporter of these reforms is our own First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. She, too, has been putting much of her effort into making sure that social issues are being addressed. Eleanor Roosevelt also just recently started her own newspaper column called My Day, which has been gaining popularity. In My Day, the First Lady addresses many controversial issues that are facing America right now, making it a popular read among people who share interest in these issues.
The support and influence of so many people finally led to the creation of the Second New Deal. The Second New Deal is designed to be another wave of new acts and legislations meant to improve our economy. According to President Roosevelt,
we are moving forward to greater freedom, to greater security for the average man than he has ever known before in the history of America.
Similar to the First New Deal passed a couple of years ago, the Second New Deal is a collection of numerous acts of legislation. Here on America Today, we're going to talk mainly about the three important overarching acts contained in the deal: the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act, the Social Security Act, and the Wagner Act.
The first of the big acts of the Second New Deal is the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act. The appropriately named Big Bill provides public work programs for people without jobs by the creation of numerous smaller acts and administrations contained within the bill. It is meant to be a short-term solution to the main issue worrying Americans: unemployment. This act directly helps people that need help the most, the unemployed. The government has spent $4 billion trying to create legislation for more jobs. The Resettlement Administration, for example, aims to help farmers and agricultural workers by assisting poorer families and sending them to more productive areas. It also establishes the model community of rural and suburban American towns for low-income workers. Additionally, the Rural Electrification Administration brings electricity to isolated rural areas. Also created was the National Youth Administration, which is strongly supported by Eleanor Roosevelt. It seeks to create work relief programs that will get the youth and young adult job. It provides an incentive of grants to high schoolers in exchange for work, as well as on-the-job training to develop useful skills.
The Big Bill fostered the Works Progress Administration. The WPA is a vast project being led by Roosevelt's close advisor, Harry Hopkins. The WPA provides jobs to people to build bridges, roads, parks, and other infrastructure with an average salary of $41.57 per month. This reduces unemployment and at the same time leads to the renovating of communities by the improvement of schools, hospitals, and nurseries. The Works Progress Administration also created many cultural programs, including the Federal Theater Project, Federal Art Project, Federal Music Project, and Federal Writers Project, or collectively called the Federal Project Number 1. The Federal Theater Project brings theaters and circuses across America. The Federal Music Project provides performance opportunities to musicians and provides kids with free musical instruction. The Federal Arts Project gives artists jobs by painting murals and public art around town and hires artists to teach craft in rural schools. Lastly, the Federal Writers Project provides jobs for writers by hiring authors to write guidebooks for every state and recording stories about the ordinary folk.
While the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act is a short-term solution to the issues facing Americans, the Social Security Act is Roosevelt's long-term solution. The Social Security Act of 1935 created a federal system to give social welfare to American citizens. Now, workers can receive federal retirement benefits through the federal pension system, in which both employers and workers pay mandatory security taxes. Some other welfare programs include a system of unemployment compensation and economic security for the elderly and to people with disabilities. In addition, the Social Security Act provides aid to dependent children, which provides aid to poor children in need without fathers present. The Social Security Board was also established to run these programs. The law does not, however, cover those who perform agricultural labor, domestic service, and casual labor. This leaves many, especially women and people of color, to be excluded from the benefits of this act.
The final large act in the Second New Deal is the National Labor Relations Act. Also called the Wagner Act, it's named after Senator of New York Robert Wagner, who first introduced this act. It calls for the support of the rights of labor. Many employers had ignored union recognition in the past years and had tried to intimidate workers out of joining unions. As a result, many of these workers walked out on their jobs. To make matters worse, this caused violence and outrage, and the government ended up supporting businesses rather than the workers in these situations. This outrage led to Roosevelt's supporting of this act. The Wagner Act gives freedom to organize unions, encourages collective bargaining, bans unfair trade practices, outlaws sponsoring of company unions, and gives union representatives the right to bargain with employers about wages, hours, and working conditions. The National Labor Relations Board was also established under the Wagner Act to enforce these measures.
Although the three main pieces of legislation passed during the Second New Deal include the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act, the Wagner Act, and the Social Security Act, there were many other acts that were also passed. These include the Banking Act of 1935, which permanently establishes the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, and a Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Also passed was the Wealth Tax Act, which made slight redistribution of income and raises the income tax of the wealthy. It also puts a new tax on business profits and increased taxes on inheritances, large gifts, and profits from sale of property, making it a very progressive act. There's also the Soil Conservation and Domestic Allotment Act of 1936, which was established in order to help farmers get through the Dust Bowl by helping deal with soil erosion and agricultural overproduction. It established the Agricultural Conservation Program to promote approved soil conservation practices through finance assistance, like rewarding farmers who planted grasses and legumes to support the soil. Lastly, there's just the recently passed Robinson-Patman Act, which strengthened the Federal Trade Commission regulation of chain stores and monopolies.
Overall, the message that Franklin Delano Roosevelt wishes to instill in the people with his plans and his policies is clear from his speech at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia.
We are waging a great and successful war. It is not alone a war against want and destitution and economic demoralization. It is more than that. It is a war for the survival of democracy. We are fighting to save a great and precious form of government for ourselves and for the world. And so I accept the commission you have tendered me. I join with you. I am enlisted for the duration of the war.
President Roosevelt is continuing to provide hope for the American people that we are on the right path. The Second New Deal continues to give many a promising outlook on the future,